Hello YouTube, this will be my second video where I will discuss the horrible plot holes, logical inconsistencies, and character developments in episode 7 of Star Wars The Lost Hope. The Force Awakens. If you haven't seen my other videos that pointed out most of these logical inconsistencies, I strongly recommend watching it on my channel or clicking the link in this video before you watch this one. Anyways, I want you to know that this isn't even about the plot holes in the movie, but the movie itself being plain illogical and inconsistent. There's no way to make up for these inconsistencies because what happened in this movie totally contradicted the movies prior to it. So continuing on with my criticisms, I want to hit on Finn's character since I had already talked about the others in my last video. Finn is supposed to be a stormtrooper who suddenly gains a conscience and turns against the Empire. For a guy who was raised and indoctrinated to be a stormtrooper for most of his life, he was super friendly and down to earth. That doesn't make any sense at all. One would expect him to have trouble socializing and relating to regular people, especially since he was trained his entire life to be a stormtrooper. There was a lot of potential for his character, but it was wasted by lazy script writers, and his character development was substituted for a comedy act. Who knew that stormtroopers had such a great sense of humor and that they had the kind of emotional output and fear of death that Finn had? You would think that the New Order would have trained their stormtroopers to not fear death, given how many of them die in every battle. Just imagine seeing a Nazi soldier who was raised and indoctrinated by Nazis his entire life act like Finn did. That was totally out of character for a stormtrooper who had just gone rogue. Another character who I didn't really mention before was Leia. A lot of Star Wars fans, including myself, were looking forward to episode 7 and in high hopes that Leia would have a main role in this movie, but it seemed like she was just shoved off to the side as just another side character. There was a lot of logical reason to believe that Leia would have a lot of screen time in this movie, but that could be excused for a number of different reasons. However, what really made me mad was her dialogue with Han. Han was like, "Hey Leia, long time no see." And Leia was like, "Yeah, I've missed you." And Han was like, "I missed you too." And Leia was like, "Oh, okay, well, remember when our son betrayed Luke and became evil? Well, you should save him." And then Han was like, "I know, and I will. Trust me." Seriously? That's how the dialogue went. There was no emotion to their conversation. It's not even a realistic conversation you would expect to have with your wife, who you haven't seen in a long time. Furthermore, when Rey and Chewie return after Han dies, Leia goes straight over to Rey and hugs her. What? She never even met Rey and doesn't even know her on a personal level, and yet she completely ignores poor Chewie to hug someone she doesn't know. Moving on with my criticisms of the movie, I just never understood why the Asian alien lady, who by the way is known as Maz Kanata, had Luke's lightsaber and why it called out to Rey the way it did. If we want to stay consistent with the other movies, then it should be acknowledged that lightsabers simply do not have a will of their own and do not call out to people using the Force. It just doesn't happen. That's not how the Force works, and it never has worked that way in any other Star Wars movie prior to this one. Only Jedis are capable of calling out to their lightsabers using the Force. From here on, I'm going to give a little more insight to the plot holes I had mentioned in my other video. So as I had mentioned, there was no basis for Rey's ability to use the Force and to be as good as she was with a lightsaber. There was no logical way that she could have known about the Jedi mind trick, nevertheless how to use the Force in any other way. It usually took an intermediate level Jedi Master to be capable of using the Jedi mind trick. In Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, we see the elder Obi-Wan Kenobi using the mind trick to influence a stormtrooper. Luke, being a novice, was impressed, and in the next movie we see that Luke learned how to use it as well, which symbolizes his growth as a Jedi. You see the same theme with Obi-Wan Kenobi when he was a mere Padawan under the teachings of Qui-Gon Jinn. In Episode 1, you see Qui-Gon use the Jedi mind trick, but you don't see Obi-Wan Kenobi use it until he reaches the status of a Jedi Master in Movie 2. If you've seen most Star Wars movies, you ought to know that there are usually time gaps between each movie. In each time gap, we are supposed to assume that some events had taken place that added to the growth of each character. An example of this can be seen with the age gap between 10-year-old Anakin in Episode 1 to the adult Anakin we see in Episode 2. You can't tell me that Anakin didn't go through any training or Jedi tasks during the course of those 10 years. These gaps aren't that important, but they do leave to the imagination as to the growth of each character. However, Rey's growth from novice to master occurred in about a minute, where she goes, "Oh, I have the Force powers because I resisted Kylo Ren, and now I'll just do a Jedi mind trick," which she had never heard of before. People think that this movie will be like the others, where the gaps and plot holes will be filled in due time. However, if that were the case, they would have named this movie Episode 9 and would have filled in the gaps with Episodes 7 and 8. However, in the following movies, I'm expecting to see more rushed dialogue about past events and flashbacks as the screenwriters try desperately to fill in the plot holes of Episode 7. At least with the other movies, you didn't need to hear much dialogue or references to the past because you were there. You were actually there. Anyways, this will be the last Star Wars movie I watch in a theater. I think I'll just wait until it comes out on a Redbox or something. Who knows? Who knows? I'm moving on, guys, and I recommend you do the same. J.J. Abrams doesn't deserve any more of our time. And so, well, thanks for watching, and see you guys next time.